Hey, what is up guys? It's your boy Speed here, and today we're going over the top 3 heroes for each role, starting with the safe lane all the way to the position 5 role. And let's get into it. Alright, so starting off with the safe lane role, I would like to say that I have an honorable mention, and that is Meepo. Meepo is the highest win rate hero on Dota buff right now. That's crazy. Of every single Dota hero to be played, Meepo's the highest. I will say I've seen it a couple times, and it has actually looked powerful, but I prefer it as a safe laner than to its traditional mid lane role. And the reason why is I don't know, I feel like this hero as a mid just soaks a little bit too much space to generally be a mid. Previously, what you would do as a mid laner is you would just kind of farm up all the nearby camps, but I feel like with how the map is set up now, Meepo is really great at being the guy who can farm all of the back camps. And I actually think the current map setup favors Meepo more than almost any other hero. And the reason why is he's like Nature's Prophet, but like Phantom Lancer. And what I mean by that is, let's say you want to farm the most back camps of the map, right? The ones that are across all the edges. You can on most heroes. If you want to try to show up to fights, you have to pray your team is fighting near a tower, otherwise you can't fight. With Meepo, of course, that's not the case. As long as you have 3 Meepos, right? Once you get your level 2 ulti, then you can farm all of the back camps and have your main Meepo shove out waves and connect with your team. And that's a huge advantage. So I really believe if it's a good Meepo game and you're a specialist, this is a pretty broken hero. Then we have Naga Siren. Talking about other illusion heroes, I think this is the best illusion hero of the patch. Just incredible wave shove. The hero's numbers have just been good for a while now. I don't have too much to say about Naga. I just think that when it comes to heroes that man up well and hit ridiculous timings, if there's any illusion hero I recommend mastering right now, it's Naga Siren. Even though you might not see it a ton in the pro scene right now, I think that's specifically because people will counterpick it, and a lot of AoE offlaners are popular at least at the highest level. And honestly, to some extent, something like Legion Commander and Darkseer, which are some of my top offlaners, are pretty good against Naga Siren. But even then, those heroes, if they don't hit a strong enough timing, and you learn how to play Naga and hit a 3-item timing around minute 24 of Heart Manta Style and Scotty or Heart Manta Style Diffusal, something along these lines, you will just own the game, right? You really will just own the game. There's also an Orchid build that's very popular, and so you can kind of flex and get solo kills as well on a lot of enemy cores. Basically, all in all, if you're looking for an illusion hero that splits up the map and hits the most ridiculous timings, it's Naga Siren. Talking about carries that hit ridiculous timings, we have Medusa. Medusa has not really fallen off even after 2 patches in a row of nerfs, maybe 3 now. Yeah, she just hasn't fallen off. It's still a very reliable laner. You can pick this first phase, and you know, I just don't think there's any offlaner that truly dumpsters it. Really, I mean, can it lose the lane? Yeah, if you play poorly and the enemy synergizes well, it can lose the lane, but so can any hero. I think Medusa on average is just one of the best laners in the game. It still hits ridiculous timings. If you're against bad matchups, such as the likes of Phantom Lancer or Animage, and you know the enemy team has a ton of physical damage or is going to try to kill you with physical mana burn, then you buy Butterfly. If they don't have that, you go Scotty and the enemy team can't touch you, and you take Roche, you take all their towers, you frontline for your team, and you just kill everyone. I've played Medusa plenty of times as of late, and it still feels pretty similar to when it was hyper broken. Not as broken. Man, oh god. Doosan 7.33 release was the most disgusting thing in the game, but either way, yeah, definitely the most broken hyper carry of Dota. Late game scaling carries, Medusa is the best. And finally, to get into more of a mid game carry that is particularly broken, and you're seeing it a lot in the pro scene right now, and that is Morphling. I think Morphling will not have a good win rate in your average pub, and it doesn't on Dota buff. However, I still want to put it on this list because what I will say is that against universal heroes, I really think that most of these heroes are pretty unplayable in a Morphling, especially if they're the core ones, such as Magnus, Windranger, Timbersaw, Broodmother. Yes, they can do fine, they can, but when you're playing Morphling against Timbersaw, and you buy Aghanim Scepter, and you morph into him, he loses 40% of all of his stats. 40% is a number that is just way too high. I've played the heroes against Morphling, and when you lose 40% of all of your stats, you honestly feel like you can't do anything. At least that's how it feels to me. Especially if you're playing something like Brood, who's a right-click reliant hero, you feel like you can't do anything because you lose a huge percentage of your armor, a good amount of magic resist from the end, you lose a ton of attack speed, most of your health, like not most, but a huge chunk of your health. It just feels like you can't click anyone, you can't man up to anyone for a huge portion of time. And I would love to say like, oh, but this is a long cooldown, so at least you can punish it. It's not. And so, I don't know. Morphling, he doesn't have a lot of bad lane matchups right now. Spirit Vessel is not in the meta. AA is not in the meta. I just think a lot of the things that counter it are just very much not that good. And and so yeah, the Axe timing's too good. Now let's get into mid laners. For my honorable mention, I have Primal Beast. I actually really love this hero right now because of all the ulti buffs. The ulti does way more damage than it used to. It does 135 more damage at level 1. Much more at level 2. This ability is just great. It really is wonderful. Pulverize is in the best spot it's been. In terms of the mid lane role, my favorite types of mid laners right now are heroes that enable the side lanes. Heroes that enable the Medusas and the Darkseers and the Lycans and the Legions, right? Heroes that kind of go to the lane and help these guys take the tower or get a couple of kills and snowball their OP heroes. I honestly don't think there's a lot of mid laners that 1v9 right now. So if you're really trying to get to the highest level of mid lane, I think it's about being a good laner, you know, kind of getting your XP, getting your levels up for the first usually about 8-9 minutes of the game, and then looking for rotations from there. However, Primal Beast is somewhat of an exception where when he gets his phase boots, or even before that, he can push out the mid lane so fast with Trample, and then just go gank a side lane around minute 6, minute 7, and continuously pick on heroes like Beastmaster, Lycan, a lot of safe laners like Slark and Spectre and PA just get run over by this hero. And yeah, I just think he's one of the best at keeping the map open and enabling OP side laners. Next up, we have Ember Spirit. It's funny that I'm putting him on this list, Ember Spirit that is, because I really think for the longest time he's been the worst Spirit compared to Void Spirit and Storm Spirit. But I don't think that's the case anymore. And the reason for that is the other spirits have been nerfed. Void Spirit in particular has been hit really hard, like really hard. This hero got chucked. And then on top of that, Storm, I don't think Storm has been that good for a while. I think it's okay with like Pugna. You can kind of like do these cheese mana strats, but for the most part, not. I just don't think these heroes are that good. But Ember, he's kind of stood the test of time, and the hero was buffed a few times, but it just was overshadowed by these other spirit heroes. And on top of that, I think this hero is particularly bad against auras. I just feel like Pipe as a counter to Ember Spirit is a bit too good in the mid game. And then the Crimson meta was also a thing, which made Sleight of Fists very much not that good of an ability. So I don't know, I think aura stacking hurt Ember Spirit the most because this is a hero compared to Void Spirit that could never buy Nullifier where Void Spirit could. Void Spirit also did like a burst of physical, kind of even could get through Crimson at the time of popular Crimson days. And so yeah, I just think that Ember really had a big problem in the aura meta, in the mech aura meta, and you might be like, oh, but that's still kind of the case. I think it's less so the case. Now that these items have been nerfed significantly and people are shying away from them and kind of moving towards like stat builds on universal heroes and other things like that, then I think that helps Ember be much more prevalent. Next up is Leshrac. Yeah, it's funny. It's definitely funny for me to be talking about this hero as well because, I don't know, it's just like he wasn't on my radar, but he received some of the most major buffs in the recent patch. And as I said, a lot of the other mid laners have fallen off. And so while I don't think Leshrac fits the build of a hero that's going to open up the OP side laners, and that is the problem with Leshrac, he just doesn't open up the side lanes early on. He has to play more of a greedy style. You can gank, don't get me wrong. This hero can gank. If you get a shield rune, haste rune, you're insanely powerful. It can, but in a lot of cases, he has 1,000 health, runs in, and kind of just feeds. So yeah, I think Leshrac, the reason why he's good now is he just hits these hard timings, and as I said, the aura meta has fallen off. These pipe rush heroes are less popular now, and in competitive Dota in particular, that would ruin this hero. In pubs, if it was popular, it would also make the hero very much unplayable in my opinion. And Pipe is still fine. I still think if you're against Leshrac, you should buy Pipe if you can, right? It's still incredibly good against the hero, but it received huge buffs in the recent patch and a fall off of aura items. Pretty good. And finally, we have Necrophos. It's weird for me to put Necro on this list, but I actually do think Necro is just a good mid hero. It doesn't really open up the map, but it puts a lot of pressure on the mid tower and can dominate a lot of the current mid lane heroes. It owns Ember in lane. It does very well against Void Spirit in lane. It does pretty well against Leshrac in lane. I just think that if you're looking for a hero that can kind of 1v9 from the mid lane, you're going to look at a hero like Leshrac or Necrophos. And I think that the biggest counter to Necro getting into the mid and the late game is Nullifier, and that still is the case. And that's why you don't really see this hero in pro games for the most part, because I do think that typically you want to pick it as a counter pick to a lot of melee heroes, and you don't want the enemy to buy Nullifier. But if that isn't the case, I actually think this is one of the best snowballing mids of the patch and can be used as a way to just kind of build up some tanky items, run in for your team, and sort of play the off lane from the mid lane especially when you have, these greedy offlane heroes like Broodmother, Lycan, and Legion that aren't buying aura items anymore. You can be the aura guy from the mid lane, and I think it's a great strategy. Now let's get into the offlane. Our first hero was Lycan. If you haven't seen Lycan, the hero was majorly buffed in the recent patch, giving him 15 seconds less at level 1 on Shapeshift, which allows the hero to play at an insane tempo. Lycan is also a universal hero, which means as his starting items, he can just jack up on stats and have ridiculously high damage. This is huge for a lot of heroes, and it's certainly huge for Lycan. And yeah, then from there, Lycan has 2 roads he can go down right now, both of which feel equally good in my opinion. If the enemy has no way to deal with summons, you go Helm of the Dominator 2, and you just run the enemy team over with summons. If they have Skywrath Mage support with Venno or Lion, something like this, you can just run them over with units. If they do have heroes that are pretty good against units, and this split sort of damage, and they're going to build something like Crimson Guard, what you can actually do is go more of a right-click build. Harpoon Lycan has very much come into the meta, which is pretty damn funny. I don't know, it's just something I never would have expected, but yeah, Harpoon Lycan with other stat items such as Manta Style and a Nullifier. Well, Nullifier is not a stat item, but that's the build. You usually see something like a Harpoon and a Manta and a Nullifier. Sometimes you'll see a BKB if it's required for the game, and that's fine. But yeah, I really think it's actually incredibly strong. I've also been thinking about some sort of Mask of Madness armlet build, but this doesn't really take advantage of the universal type, so it's probably not that good. But yeah, Lycan as a wave shove hero is insane. I still think that this hero's shard is one of the best in the game in pubs. Like, please, if you're playing Lycan, unfortunately, it doesn't feel that good on the right-click build, because on the right-click build, you want to hit more of like a 22-25 minute timing with a couple of right-click items. But with the Helmdom build, you buy it after like drums or buy it after just the Helmdom, and it farms so fast and creates so much map pressure for you. I don't know, I'm such a huge fan of it personally. Next up is Legion Commander. This hero's been nerfed like twice in a row, but it's still just like the best pub hero in the game. Just get pickoffs, snowball, buy a Blade Mail. Blade Mail's great right now. That's about it. Darkseer. If you want to buy auras, Darkseer's the way to go. Honestly, this hero, I thought it would be nerfed. It wasn't. And so it stands pretty firm on top for offlaners for me. It's a universal hero, so it takes a big advantage of going like Wand 3 branches as your starting items. You hit for like 60 with 6 armor, so it's very hard to pressure this hero, even though Ion Shell is notoriously bad at level 1 because it's very mana intensive and like easy to kite. Still, this hero, it just feels very unpressurable early on right now, and if you can get through the laning stage, it's just one of the best mid-game heroes in the game. It farms the ample amount of camps like better than almost any other hero, because 90 damage per second on Ion Shell just lets you shred camps, and you could put it on a support and they can farm for you. You can put it on a creep wave and that can farm for you. So you can shove a creep wave and farm the nearby camps at the same exact time, because you can always have 2 shells going easily. And yeah, it just feels insane. Like when I get off to a good start on Darkseer, I'm like, yeah, I'm carrying this game. Because what you do is you buy a couple of aura items, and then if the game progresses and scales and your auras didn't carry the game, which often they will, you can just go Blink, which with your level 15 Vacuum Talent is like a free black hole every fight. And then from there, you buy an axe, and whatever the enemy carry is, you just make a copy of them on a very, very low cooldown. So it just feels nuts. Like honestly, every time I play this hero and I have like, as long as I don't get stomped in lane, I feel like I'm the strongest hero on the map most of the time. I just have so much impact. My talents are insane. Don't skill your ulti at level 12, guys. Take the talents, skill the other abilities. That's the only thing I will say. Save your mana pool. Yeah, it's pretty good. All right, getting into position 4s, I'm not gonna lie, I don't think most like specific position 4 heroes are good right now. I honestly think that the best way to play position 4 is just to play ranged heroes that enable the melee offlaners. If you're gonna pick a melee hero, number 3 on this list is Nyx Assassin. Out of all the melee heroes, I think it's pretty decent in lane. It can drag the waves if needed. It has still good base stats and good base regen, so it can trade a lot. And then in terms of mid-game impact, I think Nyx Assassin is brutal. It can still one-shot people basically, can literally one-shot supports if you go the Dagon or the Phylactery build, and the impact you can have from that perspective is just freaking insane. So for scaling supports, I think Nyx is like wild. Invis heroes on this massive map with nerfed sentries is still really crazy. Even though they buffed sentries recently, I still think it's like really hard to deal with these Nyxes and bounty hunters running around, even though they did help out the enemy supports a little bit. It's still the case. From there we have Skywrath. This is actually a hero that can fulfill the role of like 4 hero, scaling 4 hero that isn't usually a 5 hero, even though pro teams are picking it as a 5, which is crazy. I mean, but still, you can play it as a 4. It's really great with the Darkseers, the Legions, the Lycans. It just enables these heroes so well, scales well into the mid game. I highly recommend going the Pavise build. It just makes the Skywrath hero that usually dies to physical damage so much tankier. It gives you like 500 health of physical damage because it gives you armor, it gives you Fluffy Hat HP, and then the 300 physical block when you get it. And then it also gives you some mana regen. So this Pavise Rush or Mana Boots Pavise with Magic Wand and Raindrops makes Skywrath, especially with the fact that his Q still heals you now, is insane. Like, this hero is so hard to kill from what it used to be. So yeah, I just think that the Skywrath for the laning stage and then going this kind of more tanky route is incredibly powerful. And then finally is Pugna, who doesn't have a great win rate on Dota buff, but in my opinion is arguably the best 4 or 5 in the game right now. It has almost no bad lane matchups. It does so well in this kind of like ball up, buy tanky ass items that make everyone feel like they're freaking the Rock. You know, they can't be touched, they take no damage, and Pugna fits so well into that. Unfortunately, Netherward doesn't block magic damage like it used to, which was so broken. But even though they just nerfed it, like literally they just nerfed life drain heal per second, it's still a stupid heal. Like, Pugna's heal has been one of the best in the game for a while. It was until the most recent patch, 7.33D, it was 160 heal per second. And if you have some magic resist, which every hero does, it doesn't do that damage to you, right? It's not like you take 160 damage per second. You certainly do not. And so you just heal like crazy. 120 per second, guys. That's like 2 Radiance burns. That's what it is. And you're just healing that. And if you decrep your ally, right? If you decrep your ally, it heals them for even more. And so yeah, it's just like you build a Pavise, you Pavise your ally, you buy drums so you don't die, or you can go Aether. Personally, I like the just like the Pavise drums Pugna who chucks down a Netherward and then kills himself to save his teammate. Also, being able to give mana is just so nice. The full mana pool from Pugna is so nice. All right, and finally getting into position 5s, we have Jakiro. Don't think the hero is being picked a lot in the pro scene, which I personally think it should be. I think the hero is very good, just does a ton of damage, man. It just does so much damage. It's got a stun, it takes towers. This hero does it all. It's a pretty good laner. It scales well, it fights runes well. Like, I don't know, I don't really get why pros aren't considering this hero at all. I personally think it's much better than people think. I think it fights well, does a lot of damage. I personally like the Q max the most. I think maxing this ability, 10-second cooldown, almost a 40% movement speed slow and attack speed slow. Well, not 40% attack speed, but 40% movement speed and 40 flat attack speed slow. 400 damage on a 10-second cooldown, and it's AoE. You can clear waves, make stacks, and clear the stacks with your allies. You can defend the mid tower really well. You lane well, you scale well. It still has some of the better talents in Dota. I don't know, I just feel like Jakiro's this really well-rounded hero that is going to be impactful every game. And so if you're looking for a reliable support to learn in pubs that's going to do well, Jakiro's a great option. And then we have Lich. Lich is also a great hero that just kind of... Lich is also just one of these more reliable heroes that has a great toolkit. Also, I recently saw it played against Beastmaster, and Sinister Gaze one-shots the boars. And it also one-shots neutrals, so you can like farm neutrals with Lich with Sinister Gaze, which is very odd to watch. But if you didn't know that, it does like a crazy amount of damage to creeps. I don't even understand why, but it just one-shots creeps. And so the Lich was laning against the Beastmaster who went the war build, and he was just eating the creeps. He was just eating the boars. And I was like, what? How can you do that? You can just one-shot the boars. And so you can do this against, you know, Treants and Lycan Wolves and Helmdom creeps and, you know, Chen creeps and Eng creeps. It just kills them. It just kills them. And then, yeah, the hero does a ton of damage similar to Jakiro. The Frost Shield and the ball up meta is very good. If your team decides to ball up, build Pavise, build drums, that type of route, you know, same idea. It's very good. And then finally with Grab Ally, aka Undying. So yeah, I mean, I just think that the Shard is a little bit too good, to be honest. Talking about heroes that fit well into the group up, ball up, be unkillable. Even though auras have fallen off, I still think that this is kind of just the way to go with how many cheap, effective, small items there are. It's so nice to have supports that like buying these items as part of their kit and don't need an Aether Lens or a Blink or anything like that. Because it's just like they're too good. Drums and Mech and Pavise and Solar Crest are just too good. They're just too good. These items are too good. And so yeah, Undying is one of the main heroes with that. And I think really the main reason why I love this hero is outside of the fact that Grab Ally is insane. Tombstone around Roshan and like these choke points, especially with Rosh, like Tombstone enabling Rosh is the best it's ever been. Because think about it, old Roshan, guys, was in an open area. So where do you place the Tombstone? It's actually not very clear, because if the enemy team comes from the left, or some of them come from the left, well, the Tombstone is going to be good against them. But if they come from the right, well, then you want it on the right. But now, if your team is taking Roshan, the enemy team has to basically all come into the same area, because it's this funneled choke point. So these heroes that play well in this funneled choke point, such as Pugna, Jakiro, Undying, Lich, are better now, right? And that's part of the reason I think these AoE heroes, these AoE teamfight heroes, especially the supports, are great. They're really great. And by the way, Pugna and Undying are just so good at taking Rosh. The Flesh Golem giving you amp damage on Roshan is incredibly good. I think Undying is just one of the best laners in the game still. That hasn't changed, just is. So he secures you the lane, he scales well. And from there, Grab Ally is just, it is really a crazy ability. Like, I've been saying it in my videos way before the hero was hard meta and even in the pro scene. I've been saying it. You put them in a Tombstone. Why does it work against every ability in the game, including Chrono and Black? Why does it work? It shouldn't. That's going to be all for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please smash the like button. It really helps us out a lot, helps the metrics. And yeah, subscribe as well. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
And that's all, but remember, before you leave, come on, before you tune out, subscribe to the Game Leap website, where we are going to help you get to the next rank. If you're stuck, click the link down below, and I'm out. Peace.